So in terms of this document, what I'm doing is kind of just working through some of this information here. So we talked about websites, we talked about iPads, apps. So the Chrome Web Store, which I'll show you in a minute, is not going to work on the iPad at the moment. We've talked about Google Apps for Education. It's a free account where you can manage students' details. We talked about sharing folders and docs. So when it comes to working with students in a classroom, one of our frustrations as teachers is that sometimes students are engaged, sometimes they're disengaged, they're all at different levels of ability. You can't just assume that your students are going to be able to pick up a computer and just be aces at it, right? There's going to be levels of resistance of your students, just like there's levels of resistance in your own staff. And so you need to have workflows in place that enable students to manage that kind of apprehension and so on. One of the things that you need to understand about collaboration is that collaboration doesn't just happen by default. Collaboration happens when you foster an environment in which collaboration works. And there's two aspects to this. One aspect is that we have a document right now that is open to you guys to edit, and so any one of you could come in and delete that. You can edit it. You can change things around, right? There's nothing stopping you. So that can be a nightmare in terms of how do you manage that workflow and how do you manage inappropriate behaviour and so on. But you've also got to understand that it's in terms of intellectual property and respecting students' work and so on. And one of the ways I want you to think about this is if you guys were my students and you're all writing in a notebook and I wanted you to do some group work and collaborate and share ideas. So just say you get out of your seat, you walk across the room, you read another student's work, and you disagree with them or you think you could make it better. So you get a pen, you scribble all over their notes, and then you write your notes that you thought were better. As a teacher, would you clap and cheer and celebrate and say yay for collaboration? Or would you want to kick their butt? Which way would it go? Probably kick their butt, right? Because they haven't respected other people's work, their property, and so on. One of the problems that you have when things are online is that students sometimes, because it's on a computer screen, they don't see the value of it, right? So I don't actually let my students go in and edit each other's work, and I don't let them go and change things, delete people's work, make it better, and so on. But anytime any student is doing any form of collaboration, whether it's a team thing outside on the field, whether it's inside the classroom, whether it's on a piece of cardboard, whether it's a discussion, there are three fundamentals to make collaboration work. And so those three fundamentals are up there on the screen. You need to read, you need to reflect, and you need to respond. So how this works is that you have students working in a group, and those students need to read what the other students have put in their input, right? They need to reflect on what the other students have contributed, and they need to be asking themselves the question, what can I contribute to make this better? Because at the end of the day, if we're doing a group task, and the task isn't better for it, what was the point of doing a group task? Really, there's no benefit. So if we're doing collaboration, the end product has to be better because we've worked together as a team rather than just individuals. So they need to be reading what the other students are contributing, whether that's verbally, watching, whatever. They need to be reflecting on what's been contributed, and then they need to respond somehow to how they're going to make it better. All right? So once you start to put this workflow into a Google Doc, it's not that the student engagement just magically happens. You've got to pull the right strings at the right time to make things happen. So you build this read, reflect, respond into your class culture. So if you drop down into that document just a little bit, you'll see how we make this work. Down here, I've got a table. Now with that table, what I've done is I've just gone up to table, insert table, and I've just dropped a number of rows in, right? Now, what I do with that is I put the students into tables. So what I would do is I'd come in here and I'd say, whoops, this here is me. And what I want you to do is go and find a row and just put your name into it. Now, if you're working on an iPad right now, you'll notice that tables don't work in an iPad just yet. So you need to go to that desktop view and force it to work like a computer. Right? But because it's forcing it, it's not going to be as seamless as what you would have hoped. If you're at the bottom of the table and you've run out of space, then if you just hit Tab, it'll drop another line in for you. So you have 4 students working on a group task, you drop a table in, they select a line. Right? Now, in terms of workflow, they can't edit each other's work, they can't write in each other's space, but we still want them to read, reflect, and respond. So they need to use a suite of tools to make this happen. Okay? So the first one is here. If you've got your name in there, just write a short sentence for me. Could be anything you like. All right. So the students are reading things. Now, if you read my comment in that line where it says Mike is cool, if you reflect on what I've written, what would you like to say about that? I spelled cool wrong, in your opinion. Right? But we all know that cool people spell cool with K, so maybe I'm right, you're wrong. So I wouldn't let you come in and then just go here, well, he spelled cool wrong, so let me just delete the K and write the C. For 2 reasons. One, as a teacher, I've got no idea that that's actually happened, so I can't attribute some kudos to the student who's actually contributed. And secondly, that's my stuff. That's like you coming over to my book, scribbling in it and writing your ideas. So we don't let that happen. So I still want that to happen in principle, it's just how it happens. So what you would do is you'd come in, you'd highlight that word, you'd go, that's where you go up to there, the comment button, or you go insert comment, and then you could say spell it cool. Right? Now, this has got my name, it's got timestamp, and it's got my comment. Now, just like I showed you in the keynote, you can click on that and then you can leave a reply and so on. So what you get is this comment tree that starts to happen down the page. So the students aren't editing each other's work in terms of just writing over the stuff, but they're still leaving ideas for people. So once you've got this comment tree going, initially what I would do is I would attribute some marks to students in how they leave comments for one another. But what will happen is very quickly this becomes like a social media thing where no one likes my Facebook status and people get upset about it. If your students leave a comment, they expect someone to read their comment, reflect on their comment and respond on their comment. Now the person who leaves the comment initially, when they feel like their conversation is closed, generally what we say is that person can click resolve. Right? Now anyone can click resolve at any time, but when you click resolve, what happens is it takes it and puts it up into this comments button up here and just gives you some real estate back on your screen. So as a teacher, I would come in, click on comments, I can see time-stamped who made comments, who replied to comments, and so on. Now, if somebody puts in here a comment and they accidentally resolve it, if I add a comment, it's going to reopen it, or I can click the reopen button just here and have that comment reopened again. So once it's resolved, it's not final, it's just managing that comment stream. Yep. No, anyone can do it. Yeah. Has anyone else got any questions on how you use that in terms of workflow? We're okay? All right. The other way that we use this is we go File and then say See Revision History. And then we've got like this revision history that comes through. So I can go back and see when the students have worked and so on. And so just a reminder, if I click here, it will take me back in time. And this green writing here, I know that I wrote that because it's green next to my name. Right? So I'm looking at this and Aaron's a real bully, right? And so Aaron says to Stacey, if you don't do my work, I'm going to beat the snot out of you. And so Stacey just jumps into Aaron's column and writes as if she's Stacey. I don't know those names right. Anyhow, she writes. What happens is I can then trace that back if I need to. So actually you didn't do the work, somebody else did the work for you. So are you okay with that? If someone wrote in there, Craig is an idiot, I know who wrote that because it's back to their name, the colour. So just what I do is I'd have an image ready, a doc ready to go where you've done some of this, and you just show it to the students and say, by the way, I just know what you've done. They don't even bother trying. The reality is Google doesn't catch every single thing that happens. It's just taking snapshots, so sometimes the students will get away with it, but generally speaking, it works pretty well. So are we okay with that revision history in the commenting section? So in terms of working this through, what you start to do is you want to build culture around this. So remember, the faster you can give feedback to your students, the more intrinsically motivated they are. So as a teacher, you don't have to let the students be working on an assessment task for 2 weeks or so, hand back a draft and realise they're off track. You can catch them in the moment, leave them feedback, share a resource. You can even leave voice comments for your students, where you just talk to them and then record that voice comment. And then keep the track on there with students. And the students can always start to work together. So does anyone have any questions about workflow and around how that works? Okay. So the key here is it's not about the tool. It's about what's powering the tool behind the scenes. Okay. So you've got to have some reasons for it. If you just say to your students, "Hey, open up a Google Doc and all collaborate," you're not going to get anywhere near the level of collaboration that you would get if you actually spend some time and just teach them some of these things. Yep.